Aloha, I'm Carolyn Tanaka and welcome to the first ever cablecast of Live at the Legislature. Every week we'll be sitting down and talking with some members of the House of Representatives to find out what some of their top issues are, what legislation is moving through the session this year. Tomorrow begins the 2018 legislative session, and with us today to talk about some of the priorities and issues that will be facing them is Representative Della Ao-Bilati. She is the House Majority Leader for the House of Representatives. Good morning, Representative Bilati.
Good morning, Carolyn. Thank you, and thank you, Alelo, for giving legislators this opportunity, as well as the public, to engage in the legislative process.
Well, you know, we're only about 2 weeks into the new year, and already there's a lot of news that's been made impacting the state of Hawaii, and a lot of issues that are going to be facing you tomorrow when you gavel into session. So let's talk about, give us an overview of some of the issues that we'll be facing this year.
The State House is going to be really focused on housing and homelessness as two priority issues. In the arena of housing, you're going to see us have a lot of discussions about how do we increase the inventory of housing at all levels, from affordable rentals to workforce development, elderly housing, and market housing.
Let's talk a little bit more about the housing issue. Right now, the state, the governor's office is working on it, counties are working on it. How do we plan to incorporate all of these ideas together?
Sure. So our House Housing Committee, chaired by Tom Brower and vice chaired by Nadine Nakamura, have been working through the interim with our state and county partners to figure out ways in which we can ensure that the inventory is being built. There will be bills that are in coordination with the governor's office. There will be bills that the House focuses specifically on. You're going to hear a lot of talk about infrastructure investment, as well as the possibility of transit-oriented development.
Can you help explain a little bit about what transit-oriented development is and how it fits in with your plans?
Sure. Now that we know that the rail is financed all the way through Ala Moana, and we have parts of the rail initially built, there is this opportunity, particularly on state lands, to encourage development around the transit stations, hence transit-oriented development. We have this opportunity to incentivize the development of affordable rentals, of affordable housing, of market housing, as well as the opportunity to talk about things like schools that should be around transit-oriented development, businesses that might be there, as well as health centers. Our communities are growing. We know that the transit areas are going to be places for development, and we have this opportunity now to have the conversation about what we want to see in those transit centers.
And we are working with the counties on this?
You know, I think it's something that we have to keep working and talking. There's a lot of conversations about infrastructure. You know, what we saw happen in Kaka'ako, where the state invested a lot of infrastructure and you had de facto transit-oriented development, but with an emphasis on housing that may not be for the affordable marketplace. We need to avoid that. We need to ensure that we have affordable rentals and affordable housing along all of the rail station lines as we move into town.
What about the homelessness? That is a huge issue to tackle, obviously. What are some of the plans on that?
So homelessness is a issue to tackle, but we already have some early indications of things that are working, things like the Kaka'ako Family Assessment Center. So what you're going to see the House do is focus on potentially pilot projects, navigation centers where we can ensure that people have the services that will get them and move them to either transitional housing or permanent housing. The Family Assessment Center in Kaka'ako focused on families. We now really need to tackle the population of single adults or couples that might not have children. We need to address the issues of substance abuse, mental health abuse. So there's a lot of good examples that we can take a look at and determine as a legislature what we need to fund. Another good opportunity and some progress that we're seeing is in the Community Outreach Court program that has been initiated in the City and County of Honolulu. Just in the few months that they've been working, we've seen over 500 cases cleared and 46 individuals helped. So you're talking about individuals, nonviolent misdemeanants, who have problems, maybe got caught up in a sweep, lost their ID. They need help to clear up their programs. They need services around them, those housing first services around them, and in order to get off the streets. That is a program that is showing great promise, so the House will be taking a closer look at the community outreach program.
There's been a lot of talk also about for lack of a better term right now, safe zones? Is that something you're looking, and enforcement?
So the more appropriate term that's being used and the best practices that we're finding around the country are navigation centers. They're going to be transitional areas where folks might be able to, store some of their belongings, a hygiene center, but really the focus is on providing them services and moving them on. I think that's what the public is really demanding. They don't want to see tent cities, and the House is not interested in necessarily funding tent cities. What we need to do is help people navigate through their issues, get the services they need, and move on to transitional housing.
What about enforcement?
So we know enforcement is a key part of it. In the governor's budget, we see that he has put some money into making sure that the agencies are staffed and have the ability to enforce. But we as a legislature know that enforcement is just one piece of it. So we need to figure out and determine where do we have these people go through navigation centers or safe zones, but really navigation centers to get them to permanent housing.
Well, that's a lot on your plate, just those two topics. But there are some other issues that will likely come up: death with dignity, perhaps recreational marijuana use. What other issues do you see coming up, and will you tackle them?
So in the House, there's going to always be lots of issues. You're right, death with dignity, there's going to be Airbnb, and we have a great slew of chairs who are going to be tackling all of these issues. Death with dignity will likely come up again in the Health and Human Services Committee. Airbnb is going to be tackled by our chair of the Tourism Committee, Richard Onishi. We're going to see all kinds of things cropping up amongst our chairs.
Well, as I said earlier, 2 weeks into the brand new year, and there are a lot of things that have happened in this state already. We go into session tomorrow, and we've also got some public hearings and an important public hearing that we're having on Friday regarding the false alert yesterday. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that hearing?
Sure. Friday's informational briefing will be a joint briefing with House and Senate committees. I think the legislature really wants to understand what happened and what is being done so that it doesn't happen again. And I think a really third important point is that we need to encourage better preparation and planning by all sectors, by state government, by county governments, by our broadcasting system, by schools, and by businesses, and individual families. This is a really good opportunity for us to learn. We have to hold the people accountable, but we also have to hold ourselves accountable and prepare.
Thank you very much, Representative. That 8 minutes went by very quickly. Thank you for being here with us today, and thank you to all of our viewers for tuning in to Live at the Legislature, and we'll see you next week. Aloha.